Good morning and welcome to this time of worship. Whoever you are, wherever you have been, you are a beloved child of God, and you are welcome to this time of worship. I know normally we come to our sanctuary, our sacred place for worship, and we have a physical respite from the rest of the world or the rest of the week. I hope that this time can be a respite for your spirit and your soul, even if you're sitting in an ordinary place like your kitchen table or your car or your bed. Maybe you can remember that God is with you in those ordinary places and can give you rest and peace and grace. We have a real treat this morning. For many, it's been a very long week. But we'll have a guest preacher this morning, Reverend David Tinney, who's a retired pastor and part of our congregation. He's with us to bring us not just a word, but images of God's beauty and creation. So I think that you are going to find some sanctuary in this time. I do have a centering thought for us this morning to remind us, to call us to that spirit that is always within us, even during those long weeks. This is from the poet Theodore Reike. I'm not sure I'm saying his last name right. Rothke? Anyway, can't say it, but he has a word of truth for us. Deep in their roots, all flowers keep the light. Deep in their roots, all flowers keep the light. Maybe you're having a week where you feel full of bloom. Maybe you're having a week where you feel like the sun is absent from your life. But remember, deep in your roots, the light of God still shines. Friends, why don't we gather together? Let's sing with one another in this time of worship.
Blessed assurance. Lord, you won't let go. 1, 2, 3, 4. No shadow comes without the light making a way. No raging storm can ever defy one word of faith. My heart remains sure in the wind, sure in the waves. You are the anchor for my soul. You won't let go. You won't let go. No matter what may come, I know you won't let go. Whoa. No valley low changes the truth, so I'm not afraid. You hold me close, you lead me through, light up the way. You are the anchor for my soul. You won't let go. You won't let go. No matter what they say, no, you won't let go. You won't let go. Neither life, neither death, highest high, deepest depth, nothing can separate. Neither tears, neither trials, certain as the sun will rise, nothing can separate. Neither life, neither death, highest high and deepest depth, nothing can separate, nothing can separate. Neither tears, neither trials, certain as the sun will rise, nothing can separate. You are the anchor for my soul. You won't let my heart remains sure in the wind, sure in the waves of
Friends, I know that we really love having Pastor David and Carol be part of our congregation, and we're really excited to have him with us this morning to share some of his photography. He's done this before, and we just always find so much meaning in it. And he has a trip that he's recently taken that he'll share with us. And he's been sharing these images just one by one to his Facebook followers as a moment of calm in a very unsettling time. And so I asked him if he would just share them all with us to draw us towards God's creation and help us to be centered in things that go beyond the concerns of the hour. So we're so grateful that he's able to do this. And with technology, I hate to say this, but with this technology, it's actually easier for him to do this than if we had to set it all up in the sanctuary. So we're making good use of our Zoom time together. Pastor David's going to draw us towards this scripture in the midst of his talk. So I thought I would read this for us as our scripture passage this morning. This is probably going to be familiar to many of you who love the Psalms, but it reminds us that our help is coming to us, that God comes to be with us and comes to help, but we have to be drawn outside of ourselves. If we get too, my dad always calls it navel gazing, if we get too scrunched down, too within ourselves, we will miss that God is all around us. So this passage and David's beautiful pictures draw us out of ourselves to remind us that God is so much bigger than just us. So this is Psalm 121. I lift up my eyes to the hills. From where will my help come? My help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth. He will not let your foot be moved. He who keeps you will not slumber. He who keeps Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is your keeper. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun shall not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all evil. He will keep your life. The Lord will keep your going out and your coming in from this time on and forevermore. The word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God.
Thank you, first of all. Meredith, thank you so much for inviting me to do this. And it came at a great time. I wasn't working this Sunday at the hospital, and so it just worked in perfectly. Meredith said that this was a unique experience. It is. Many of you know that I turned 70 this last summer, and my son came up and said, I would like to give you a gift that is a very unique gift, and I'd like to invite you to go with me anywhere in the world and do photos together. And I was shocked. It was, you'd never expect your kids to do something like that for you. And so immediately I said, I want to go to Yellowstone just at the beginning of winter, because that's the magical time in Yellowstone where everything starts to change. And so we took off about 3 weeks ago, and we spent a week together in Yellowstone and the Grand Tetons. And it was amazing. And when I came back, I was still riding a high of, all of this beautiful stuff. And I wanted to share it because I was so calm, and, it was just one of those things that took away all my concerns, all my worries, and just allowed me to be in God's creation. And so when I came back and felt the temperature and the kind of the anxiety level of people around me, I decided that I would try to calm people down with calm pictures in an anxious time. And they were put on Facebook, and the response I got was outstanding. And so I would like to share those with you. I'd like you to just sit back and enjoy. And if you have questions, just jot them down. I will try to do that at the end. So we are going to do this. This was one of the first shots. That's the Tetons behind. I don't know if you've ever been there. It's a glorious range of mountains. But we got there at the precise time when the aspen trees were changing color. And actually, they were in their top part of their color. And these are aspen trees that are on this dike. And the thing that I love about this picture is it almost looks like a parade of elephants. I don't know if you've ever watched the elephant, but the one in the foreground looks like it has a trunk. And it looks like all the others are following behind. And this was the way we started, with this kind of scenery, with this kind of foliage everywhere. Again, every time we would go out to look for animals, we got sidetracked by the beauty of these aspen groves and how golden they were. I love the western fences and the rugged look of them. And so it just became a powerful thing just to jump out of the car and start to shoot leaves and trees and stuff. So we jumped out of the car here, and there was a herd of bison. But what made it beautiful were the trees around surrounding him, and it was just beautiful to watch this. This perhaps was one of my favorites. We hired a guide for 2 days, and on the first day, he said, I'm going to take you to places in the Grand Tetons that nobody ever goes because they wouldn't dare go up a road like this. And so we went up a dirt road like this. And I looked back and I saw this grove of aspens, and it was, just so beautiful, so magnificent. And it reminded me of where we are as a nation, with two sides, with the same kind of trees, the same type of people, but two sides in a road bisecting us, and how it's so easy to get divided. And I was just kept on telling my son, it is such a great picture because of the potential of it, of the potential of finding ways to walk that path so that we come back together again. So hopefully that becomes a peaceful picture for other people to dwell on and to think on, so that we might find ways to reach out to our neighbors, those that are on the other side of the road. My son said, I want to go into one of these groves, and I just want to bathe myself in the beauty. And so we walked into one of these aspen groves, and everywhere you looked, there was a beautiful picture. And so we spent some time in this one, and it was just like pure meditation. It was so quiet. You could hear the rustling of the leaves with the breeze blowing through. And it just was like God had created this just for us. So we kept on going up that road, and we got to the top of the road, and there was only like a couple other cars around. And this was one of the lakes. There's supposed to be two lakes there. We only went to the one side. But there are two lakes, and they're called the coastal lakes. And everything on the eastern side, in the eastern lake, all the water would eventually drain out into the Atlantic. With the western one, everything went out into the Pacific. And so here, our guide was kind of telling us all this, and I was just shooting pictures. I couldn't care less about what way the water went. This was so gorgeous. And this was on then the eastern side of the lake. And you get pictures like this of, just the beauty. And so all the sun was coming down on that side, on the eastern side. And I turned around for just a second, and I saw this, which was in the shade. And it was just one beam of sunlight coming down and illuminating this tree and a little island that was there. And I shot about 5 pictures, and it was gone. But the depth and color and the serenity, that one will stay with me for a long time. It's become one of my favorite pictures just because it was there and gone so quickly. If you've ever been to the Tetons, you'll know that there are these 2 barns that are out there in a field. The barns were built in several decades ago by a Mormon group that had set up a little, basically a little town of their own. And these are the remaining, or there are 3 barns, but these 2 are the ones that are still remaining. And they're just gorgeous, especially with the Tetons behind. And this is another one. It almost looks like the peak of the barn matches some of the peaks of the Tetons behind. This was a great tourist attraction. It was one of those that, everybody who goes to the Tetons actually ends up here, but this is beautiful. And so we finally started heading north into Yellowstone. And this was, we got up 3 times, 3 mornings to try to catch this at 6:30 when the sun was supposed to be rising. And the guide said, you're going to have to be here at just this right time because this mountain on the right-hand side below the bird is supposed to turn pink and bright red. Well, it never did that, but it was such subtle colors. And I think I paid this bird to fly across at just the right moment to come through and just, make that picture even better. We went back all 3 times and never saw the pink except for what was that little bit right there. This is one of my favorites. We were going up into Yellowstone. I saw the sun rising, and I kept waiting for it to have a good something in the foreground to bring to balance out the picture. I wanted it to be something where there would be at least layers from the front very much to the back. And so I jumped out of the car, got my tripod, set up in this field. It was still so dark that I couldn't even see to change my settings on my camera. And I got this picture. And it's just such a beautiful scene. I call it the Wyoming sunrise. And those fences and the colors just made it perfect. We had a lot of pictures like this. A lot of times when we'd be walking along a creek. So we were with the guide for 2 days, and then we went on our own, and he had shown us all these places we could go and not get in any kind of trouble. And we had this kind of just the park to ourselves many times. Another picture, again, with the aspens and the mountains behind. It was truly a great time to come. If you ever want to go to the Tetons or Yellowstone, try to do it in the shoulder seasons, that time in between fall and winter. It is the very best. About half the visitors are there, and you get the whole place to yourself. When I was a kid, my folks went over to Yellowstone and to the Tetons, and we fell in love with Jenny Lake. I don't know if you've ever seen that one, but it's this one, it takes a little bit to get there, but it was well worth it. We camped as family at Jenny Lake. And then a little bit later, when the kids were of age to go, and we took them, and it was in Jenny Lake that they were actually fishing just below where I am right there. There's a little beach. And so I wanted to find it and show my son, Bill, where he was catching fish. And it was wonderful to be able to come back to this. Now, while we were there, we kept on teasing that we hadn't seen many animals yet. And I said, right about now, we ought to have an eagle come by. Well, sure enough, if the grid isn't covering it, let me see. Can everybody see an eagle, or is it being covered?
No, we can see it, David.
Oh, perfect. Okay. So Bill looked at me and he said, I'm going to go get a picture of it. And he dashed off in one way, and I dashed off in another way. And so we came back with 2 different pictures. That was his first, the one we just saw was his. And then he went under it. On the right-hand side is a picture of the eagle. And if you look up that tree, he's got the moon, half a moon cradled up at the top of the tree. I shot the one on the left-hand side. And all I can say is my son beat me on both pictures a lot. He he was in glory, boasting about his pictures and how they beat out mine, which was great. We had a chance, well, first of all, it was in 2020, when this happened, and we know how there were fires everywhere. And I had hoped that, we would get over to Yellowstone area and there would be no fires. I was wrong, we had a fire. It was just north of Yellowstone. And because of it, the air became very toxic and very polluted, but it created amazing sunsets. And this is the first time I've ever seen a sunset 3 times in the same area. So this was how we pulled out of the car, we saw this, and just a few minutes later, it started to land on the very top. It looked like almost like an ice cream sundae with the sun being the cherry on top. So we waited for that, and as soon as it got out of sight and down behind the mountain, we took off. And my son said, "You know what? I bet you we're going to see the sunset again because it looks like it's coming off to the side." Well, we did. I mean, it was this beautiful thing. It was like it had rolled down the hillside and finally came to this one, which was just amazing. We sat there and just, I don't know how much we could, how much you could be in awe in that moment. The sun looked like it was just giant. And it was just this beautiful, beautiful sunset. Finally, we started to find animals. And antelope are everywhere. And in fact, you get tired of seeing them, but they are fun animals to follow. And so I'm out there in the field shooting this one. And this other one looks at me like, "What are you doing? And who is that guy?" And I just love this picture just because of how comical the antelope was. We fell in love with this owl. We saw it 3 times. The first time we saw it, we couldn't even see it in the trees. It was back in the trees and it was camouflaged really well. But we knew that there were at least 10 people out there with their tripods and their cameras out. So we decided to take a look. And I could not see it. One of the things I really am proud of is that I have great eyesight to be able to see things like eagles and hawks and stuff like that. I could not see it. My son, Bill, said, "I see it. And Dad, how about if I take your camera and I set it up so that you can shoot pictures?" Whoa, what a change of life. I would be doing that for the kids. Now my son is doing it for me. And it was one of those great change moments, one of those beautiful things that, just by allowing that to take place, it made that relationship between Bill and myself even deeper. But this is a great gray owl. And they're an endangered species in some parts of the United States. They had a huge population for a while and then they've kind of backed down. But this is a very rare bird to see, and we saw it 3 days in a row. The thing we learned is that the eyes are locked in. They don't move from side to side like our eyes do. They're just locked in, and so that's why the owl can do that 270-degree turn with its neck, because they are able to do it, and that's the only way they can see from right to left. But boy, when you look into those eyes, they peer back at you. I love this one because it's almost like, what did you do wrong? Or, it's a very powerful expression looking straight through you. My son Bill thought that, he had built a relationship with this owl just by staring into its eyes. Flying. So they just dive out of the trees, pick up whatever it is their prey, and back up into the trees. But I love pictures like this where the eyes just grab you and it's coming at you. And if you look, this is the same owl. From the backside, it has a little bit different coloring, at least when it gets picked up in the sunlight. But the owl's leg, even the legs, if you see in the middle of the picture there, they're covered with feathers as well. So little mittens, they look like little mittens. And so we're coming home one day and we see a traffic jam, which usually means there's a big animal out in the road or something like that. And Bill says, I think I see either a big hornet's nest or an owl. And so he went out and sure enough, it became a great horned owl. To see a great gray and a great horned owl in the same day is just amazing. And so we walked a little bit closer and a little bit closer. And he gave me a wink. So it was like, I see you. I'm just going to give you that wink. Stay. That's as far as I'm going to let you go to me. Beautiful picture. Beautiful. I mean, just to have that kind of closeness with these animals was just fantastic. I like to, when I'm shooting animals, I like to get something a little bit deeper than just snapshots of an animal to say, okay, here's a shot of an elk, or here's a shot of a deer or a bear. I wanted to give it personality. And so I stayed with this one for a while, shot some close-ups, and then it walked over to this tree. And I don't know if you have a dog, but they love to be pet under their neck. This elk just loved to go over this tree and just scratch himself on the neck with this big bough here. And he did this for a long time. We were going along and I saw this other really big elk trying to hide as he's sleeping. And it was like, there were so many other twigs out or branches out there. It looked like he blended in, but I went out and I can just see his eye looking at me right through the weeds there. After he was done, he started bugling because this is the rut time. And he let out this bugle and it was amazing to be there in that moment. One of the things I try to do again is to bring out a different personality in an animal. We had a hard time finding moose. That was one of the animals that was high on our list. We wanted to do something with moose. And it wasn't until about the third day that we found a moose. And he came out from the bushes and he looked around, and we were on the other side of a creek, so that, it looks like I'm very, very close. But actually, I'm not. I have a 850 millimeter lens, which is a big lens. Was able to come in like I was right there with him. And he turned just the right way to get the sunlight on the one side, and you can see all the texture on the other side. And then it just dropped off into darkness. And so I just shot this one picture, and it just was so beautiful to be able to do this. And again, one of my favorite pictures, just because he's got a personality. This is, again, another one of my favorites. I call it the old soldier. If you look up on his antlers, he's only got antlers on one side. That means he's been battling for a long time. And he's lost one antler. He's still one of the biggest of the moose out in the area there. Everybody left him alone. He wasn't good. Nobody, none of the other moose were ever going to do battle with him. He was that, kind of like he's the patriarch of this area. And I got closer, not distance-wise, I got closer with my lens and wanted to shoot pictures an entirely different way. So here is another moose, a younger moose, looking at me, just trying to stare me down. And as it eats, he never takes his eyes off me. He eats and, shaping me up all the time that he's doing it. And I love this picture. The depth of it, the picture, the amount of color in the dark areas. Just beautiful to be able to shoot this picture and to have that, build that relationship. Again, if you just sit and are careful, and if you just allow your self not to run up to them or try to approach them too quickly, you can get things like this. And that's what I was hoping for, is pictures like this. This is a bison. Again, a little close, but I blew it up quite a bit in order to get to this point. But I love how, it was watching me. As soon as he felt like, that I was okay, he goes over into a dust pile and he just rolls and rolls. And, it was so fun to watch him because he could care less if anybody else was around. He just wanted to roll. And so a good old dust bath. Here is another great one. One of the big bison that getting ready for winter by losing its coat, ready to go and grow a new coat for the winter. And here are two that are fighting with each other. They do this to practice and hone their skills, but it's interesting to be that close and to be able to shoot those pictures, and they could care less. Now, whenever bison were crossing the roads, they would cause a traffic jam. They went whenever they wanted to, and at this speed they want to do it. And I love this woman. She pops up out of the rooftop and was shooting pictures and then waiting for them to go. But just the smile on her face made it. Then coyotes, fox, all these animals were out there, but they become so camouflaged that it's hard to see them. So you have to go slowly. And so we did. And this coyote was just waiting for us to leave so that it could go back to hunting. The one picture we still hadn't gotten by the end of the week was a grizzly bear. We heard reports that the grizzly was sighted over on the east side, almost all the way into Montana. So we took up and drove out that way. And here we get to this one ridge and we see this mother bear. And it crosses the road and baby's right behind it. People were pulled over to the side of the road. I went around to the top of the hill and I started shooting these, and I was right next to the game warden. And I said, "Am I okay here? Am I safe?" And she said, "Yes, you are, but I can't vouch for that woman who's running at the bear with her iPad trying to get a picture." And so he says, she said, dumb is dumb. We're just going to let him be. Again, kept on going. I was up on the ridge and got shots like this, which were just fun to look down and see this bear. Quite honestly, we're a long way away, but being able to just sit up on the top, get that stabilizer out to make sure that not a whole lot of motion. But this is what happened. This is my son, Bill. And we bonded like crazy. I would have to say that even if I didn't shoot any pictures for the entire time, just being with him for this time was one of the greatest experiences in my life. I end with this picture, or these two pictures. This was on our last day there. The snow had started to fall, and that was so beautiful to watch that snow up in the mountains. The bison are out here grazing in the field, and it was just this feeling of, this is the West. This is the essence of Yellowstone Park and the Tetons. It is just this kind of scenery everywhere you go. And this is my favorite. This one I did, not this trip, but the trip before. And it is one of my favorite pictures. It's looking up to the Grand Tetons. And it reminds me of one of the verses out of Psalms. I lift up my eyes to the hills. From where comes my help? And that's one right now. Where do we seek our help? Where do we seek that calm? How do we get through this next, transitional period? How can we seek our help in God? That's all I got. So I'm stopping share. Okay, there you go.
David, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for allowing me to do that. Thank you.
Oh, it's such a treat to not just see your pictures, but get to hear you and hear the stories behind them. That's a real treat for us. Does anybody have any questions or anything you wanted to know about?
That was a very rich and wonderful experience, David. Thank you so much for sharing. I had been to Yellowstone a year or so ago and really enjoyed the park, but it was wonderful to see it through your telephoto lens because we couldn't get that close to many of those creatures because we didn't have telephoto. So thank you for blessing all of us with
Yeah.
your telephoto experience of Yellowstone and with your son.
Thank you so much.
David, when is the book available?
Um,
Agatha and her husband.
I don't know if we're going to do that. We may. I was talking to Dave Burfine, who is the director of Lazy F Camp, and we're going to be selling some pictures of mine there, and all the revenue is going to go to camperships for Lazy F. That's over, in Ellensburg. I would love to, if we're going to do something here, I would love to do it so that whatever we raise money for would be something that we could do here, maybe for our camp right here. And so, I'm debating what we can do, but there will definitely be pictures for sale, and I can give you a way of doing that. I'm not ready to put out another book yet. we're still trying to sell the last one, but I think Bill and I will be doing something because it was so much fun to work with him. He's an artist, and what a joy! I mean, what a joy to be around him and to see the world through his eyes, and really the passing of the baton in many ways. I had a whole rig set up for him with Nikons, and I had mine, and all the lenses, and we were just swapping things back and forth, and it got to be we didn't know who shot what picture, so we just both took credit for it. It was just wonderful to do that. We didn't even compete with each other. It was just, how do we make a better picture? How do we do this? Dad, how do you do follow focus? All these beautiful things that were passing up my knowledge, and him passing down to me that desire to go and shoot better pictures. So it was great.
So my question was what you're shooting with, Nikon? Nikon,
yeah. So the 850, which is a really good body, and the thing that made it really was that lens, and so, which is now in the repair shop because it got filled up with dust, but also because just bounced it one time, and so I'm glad it waited to get bounced to the very end. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please do let us know how we can purchase prints, especially for Christmas presents, and if it's going to benefit, our Methodist camps or whatever you choose.
Or the church. Yeah, I think it would be great for us to do that for the church.
Yeah, that would be really, really neat.
Okay.
I always really appreciate your animal pictures because, like somebody said, we can't get that close, but to see them up close, to see their personalities, it's so special.
Yeah, it's a unique camera. And the other thing is, at one time, there's this very famous grizzly bear there, and $3.99 or
$3.99.
Yeah, and so it had 4 cubs this year, and so everybody wanted to get pictures of it, and so they had $3.99 watches, and so every time we would go by, here would be, this road, there would be this whole group of people in campers and everything, just spending time there waiting for her to come out with the 4 cubs. Well, I would watch them come out, and they would have these lenses that, with the front end lens being, something that size, and you would go, holy cow, how can you carry that around? Well, when I saw the same thing happen with that bear, and they were up on the same type of folks with the big lenses and the whole big thing, and the wind was blowing so hard, they couldn't stabilize the lens because it was like a sail. And so mine is a different lens, and it's a narrower, it's still big, but I was able to just sit down on the ground and hold it and be able to get those pictures. So it was really great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Blessings to all of you. I really appreciate it. So
thank you so much.
mhm.
All right. 1, 2, 3, ready.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be, with God our Creator. Children all are we. Let we walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my solemn vow, to take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
Friends, aren't we so fortunate to be surrounded by such wonderful artists, by our musicians and people who have so many skills that they share so generously with us. Photographers and woodworkers and quilters and bakers and gardeners. There are so many ways that we appreciate the beauty and the abundance of the life that God has given us. We had a chance to remember that in our anti-racism study group this week, that so often we come into the world and we see it through a lens of scarcity, when really what God has given us is a life of abundance. And I know for many of you, whenever you are drawn to those acts of creation, those acts of creativity, it helps draw you into God's creative work, into this life of abundance, where there is enough for us and for everyone. Ultimately, there is enough love. And isn't that Jesus' greatest commandment and call to us? To love one another as God has loved us. He gives us the greatest commandment at the Last Supper, to love one another as he loves us. But the greatest commandment is like it. It's the same thing, but is said a different way. To love God and to love your neighbor as you love yourself. There are many ways that we do that, and I know that you will continue doing that this week. No matter what the world brings, we will love in God's holy name. Thanks be to God. Friends, receive this benediction. Give witness to the love of God in this world, so that those to whom love is a stranger will find in you generous friends. The love of Jesus Christ, the grace of God, and the communion of the Holy Spirit be with you now and forever. Amen.